I love that shirt though. That one's a cute one.
We are live.
Super cute.
Hey everybody. Welcome to another Midnight Sun Thursday, hosted by the Twilight Lexicon. Lori's waving hi. She's checking on us to make sure we're okay. For those who are new, welcome to another discussion. We're going to be diving a little bit deeper into Midnight Sun tonight, talking about Edward and Bella, but mostly Edward, I think. Last week we were a little bit more very high level in our discussion, kind of just getting thoughts out, so we didn't dive quite as deep. But over the next few chats, I think we're going to be going more in depth on certain areas about the book. So just wanted to put that out there. If you thought last week maybe we didn't get into as much detail, so it was really kind of the first like blah moment that we had to talk about Midnight Sun. So hopefully we're going to go a little bit deeper tonight, and let us know if you have questions in the chat. So I've introduced myself. I'm Amy Taylor. I'm known as Oh My Carlisle on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me there. And then also back in the Twilight days, I worked on hisgoldeneyes.com and then pagetopremiere.com. And now, in addition to hanging out with this fun crew for Midnight Sun Thursdays, Mel and I do Twilight Tuesdays every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, where we were rereading the saga. Now we're reading Midnight Sun, so where we talk about going chapters by chapter discussions. So join us in Twilight Tuesdays every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on Oh My Carlisle on Instagram Live. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mel to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Melissa or Mel. You can find me on social media via Rosalie or Rosalie85. Or you can also find me over on the Ladies of Esme, which I help do all the social media for. There's 3 of us that do social media, but there's 11 of us in the group. That is Ladies of _ Esme on Instagram, or just Ladies of Esme wherever else you want to find it. And I've been in the fandom for some time now, and couldn't be happier that the Renaissance has kicked off, but I never left.
No, you've always been here. We've always been hanging on. Shelley, welcome back. It's been a few weeks.
Yes, it's been a few weeks. Hi, I'm Shelley Harper. I am from Conquest Journals. We make fandom Harry Potter, supernatural planners and journals. You can find me on social media at conquestjournal.com, Quest_journals on Twitter, Conquest Journals on Instagram. And I read Twilight in 2006, randomly picking it up at a bookstore, found the Twilight Lexicon not very long after that, and was Something Blue on the Lexicon site. And I helped them with PR, and we went to conventions together, and we had a great time.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Heather, you're in a totally different location this week.
Constantly changing it up to keep you all on your toes. Yeah, I just actually moved to Massachusetts. So hello, all of my New England people again. I'm Heather. You can find me at It's HD Gilbert on Instagram and Twitter. I love talking about Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson in all forms. So if you guys are interested, come hang out with me, come chat with me. I love it. And yeah, I'm super excited to be back for another panel, another week of chatting about my favorite thing ever. Cause like Mel, I have never left the fandom and have just been waiting for this Renaissance to return.
So our Pats has the coronavirus.
I know. I'm really sad. I'm hoping he's asymptomatic. We're going to go the most positive route we possibly can and hope for the best.
I'm sorry if that spoiled anything for everybody.
Batman has corona. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Batman's got corona.
It is, again, you just said hashtag 2020.
Yeah, literally. We got the Peter Fachinelli pictures. We also got Robert Pattinson with corona.
I'm sorry. I know. Wait, we have one more introduction. Do the introduction, because then we've got to talk about Peter Fachinelli.
We can totally use that. Well, we have someone new tonight. So Erin, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, guys. I'm Erin. I'm representing Twilight Moms. I was on Twilight Moms back in the old days of the Tory Mom. I'm still a moderator. on Twilight Moms. I used to travel around with the creation panels. I think I've met several of you because I hosted the Twilight Moms panel and was a vendor for quite a long time with Creation 2. I'm so excited that like all of you to be talking about this again, because in my circle, it never went away. So now I'm excited that once again, it's finding people and new people. And like my daughter is now 17. When she was little, I was like, she's never going to read these as a teenager. I don't want her like all this puppy love, but now I'm like, read it. I want to talk to somebody about it. So I'm really excited to be with you guys tonight.
That's awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here. And I think we may have met, now that you said that, like if you were doing vendor stuff with Creation, I think we chatted back then.
Yep, I think we did.
I said to Mel, do I know her? Have I met her? I've probably met her.
Yeah, I think we did. I had Scarlet Apple, and so I had a table I like from the beginning and when Creation started the Twilight ones, and then I hosted the Twilight Moms panel, and then was at TwiCon in Dallas. I don't know if you guys, so I think our paths crossed at some point.
Probably. There are a lot of Twilight Moms.
Oh yeah, there's just a few of us, right?
I'm Lori. I'm from the Twilight Lexicon. You can find us on twilightlexicon.com, Twilight Lexicon Instagram, Twilight Lexicon Twitter. Anyway, so what about this? I mean, like, what about this? I'm sorry, Rob who?
I'm on my phone now.
Rob who?
Wow. I'm just like, if he was, there would have never been a Team Edward if he was like this back then.
Right.
Although he's always my team, so I'm keeping him.
You knew.
Yeah, that's manly.
I knew. I mean, I was looking, so hold on, because I was going to do something about this on Instagram, but
You posted it, and I went, "Oh, who is that?"
I mean, 46. So I was thinking, was there anything else? Was there anything comparable in the past from any of the other guys? And I'm like, there was that one of Cullen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I'm like, 46.
It could almost be my child. Almost. Oh, that could be my husband.
So good. I'm like, I may need to do like
Never
something.
feel that way about me, but
And it's so good to see him like that after the movie rewatch I've recently done and the unfortunate hair that Peter had, especially in the Breaking Dawn films. It was
they couldn't get it right?
no,
Wigs were
no,
specialty.
no.
Breaking Dawn, he also had some extra weight on too. He was going through the divorce, and
Yeah.
I'm like, now I'm like, damn.
Yeah. Poor Peter. Yeah, that was
Okay.
a little
So
rough.
let's I know we had to give Peter his love for that because oh my gosh, that was a stunner. Let's jump into Midnight Sun this, and look at all of my tabs all over Midnight Sun.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't get that far. I got a few.
You've got a few.
I tabbed those. These are tabs for tonight. These are all the ones for Tuesday.
You guys are so organized. I'm feeling like a slouch.
No, don't. I don't have any tab. I'm a 0 tab person.
Okay, all right, that makes me feel better. Thank you.
The only thing that saved me for this, and I'm really, these questions are like much harder than I'm probably going to be able to answer, but I did happen to highlight some of my favorite moments on my Kindle while I was reading. And so today I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. And then I was like, wait, I think I highlighted things. And I did.
Brilliant. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So that's where I put the tabs in on the hardback so that I could flip it open during our discussion.
So this chat tonight is going to be mostly Edward specific, and you can't really talk about Edward without talking about Bella. But we learned so much about Bella in Twilight. Now we're learning a lot about Edward from Midnight Sun, but of course Bella's going to come up too. So this is our very specifically, Edward discussion. Next week we're going to turn it over to, that's the like the big virtual conference, right? Mel, you want to talk about that?
Yes, so Ladies About Esme is hosting a virtual Twilight weekend since FTF got canceled this year. Initially, they had still been planning to do kind of a fan gathering. So our group just decided to go ahead, go forward, do a virtual event to keep the Twilight magic going. And we start next Thursday.
The Twilight watch along on Thursday, right? At this time.
We have a Twilight watch along. Actually, I think it's a little bit later. But we do have trivia happening. We have different items like Forks 101, so you can know how to navigate the town and the movie sites, which are down in Oregon for the first one. We have different other items that aren't listed on the schedule. So we do have some surprises in store. And we have some of the Legacy Olympic Coven members joining us to do little things just so we can get some familiar faces back into the fandom.
So we're not gonna chat next Thursday, but then in 2 Thursdays, we plan to go Cullen specific, like all of the Cullen information that we learned from this book. So those are our plans over the next couple of weeks. So this week, let's start with the biggest revelation you had about Edward from reading Midnight Sun. The biggest thing that you were like, gosh, I just didn't know this, or it just didn't hit me this way from reading Twilight. So we're going to start. Mel, what was your biggest Edward revelation?
I don't know that I would call it necessarily a revelation, but I think I always had that thought that reading Twilight, he just seemed like such a stalker. And we do get the line in Midnight Sun where he says a stalker, an obsessed vampire stalker. But the further that it gets, the more that I was like, okay, it's not really that he's just straight up stalking her. It's like, I'm fearing for her life. I'm going to make sure she's okay. And I was really worried pre-reading Midnight Sun that he was going to come off as even more of a stalker. And my mind definitely flipped to the other side.
Erin, how about you?
Well, I kind of the same thing. I have to say I was really worried because, we're in a different place than we were when Twilight came out, right? And it's really been surprising to me. When I read Twilight, maybe this says a lot about me. I don't know. I never found, like, other than I think when I sleep, I'm probably not at my most attractive, right? So it never came off to me as like creepy, stalkery, whatever. I just was like, thank God nobody does that. Like, because I don't think it would, be very attractive whatsoever. But like, it never came. I mean, I did feel like, because I was a young mom at that point, and I did feel like, whoa, this is really intense, really fast. So it was interesting to me how it wasn't as fast for him as it seemed to be for her, that he was all about her. I mean, it was very much like, I want to kill her. And like, he was kind of slow to latch on that this isn't just like, I'm protecting her, that I do have feelings for her. Like that I think was the most interesting to me, that it was like, okay, I'm going to protect her. And then it was like, but it was kind of annoying to me at the same time. Like, come on, like, snap out of it. You do love her. Like, but I think I was happy when I started reading it now, I was very scared of like, oh, is this going to be too dated, or is this going to seem way creepier than I thought it was, 10 years ago. And I was really happy that no, it didn't come off to me. Again, maybe that speaks volumes about me, but it didn't come off to me that way at all. And I think it was that like he was more protecting her. She kind of fell for him fast and hard. And I don't think that it didn't seem like it was that way for him. It was more protecting her. And then maybe it was there and he just didn't realize that's what it was. But I don't know.
How about you, Shelley?
So I know, like, I get the Me Too movement and the whole stalker thing. His stalking her never bothered me because, well, number one, this isn't real life. Number two,
right.
He's a fictional vampire. And number three, he is other. So whatever he's doing you're not going to expect a normal boy to be doing. But I think I had probably 2 big revelations. And one of them was that he is, and I didn't look at it this way from Bella's perspective. In Edward's head, he is an irrational, moody, angsty, anxious 17-year-old who, to juxtaposition that, because my son is 18 right now, right? So like I live it, and the mood swings and all of those things when she's like, wow, you know, he's like hot and cold, whatever. I mean, boys. yeah, boys, right? And then, but at the same time, he has this vast breadth of experience and years that have aged him. So it's this, he has all these experiences, but he's still frozen as a 17-year-old kid. So I think there are, you know, these things war in him all the time. And, you know, I mean, I think when Stephnenie said she just felt it was so hard to write because she was so anxious because he was so anxious. I mean, he's a mess the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know he was such a mess. And then Lori knows the other thing I'm going to say that really, I was like.
You might want to save that. That might fit a question later.
Okay, I'll save it.
Heather?
So I know last week I had said like kind of the same thing as what Shelley just said, where I was shocked that he's like actually a 17-year-old moody emo boy. Like, oh my gosh, Edward, like this is great. But I think what was more like impactful for me in reading it was his like, it really did feel like he was born in the early 1900s. Like his mental thoughts like led me there, where you definitely don't get that from Bella, because he's just like so good at acting like a normal kid and like everyday life and just like adjusting. But like hearing his thoughts and like he's like afraid to swear around a woman or like do these like very specific things that just someone wouldn't even think twice about, and he's just like sitting there feeling very awkward or self-conscious, or like he needs to like fulfill a very specific social like requirement, kind of like leading up to obviously when he proposes and he's like, I would have taken you out and done all these things and courted you, and it's like, yeah, you're not really going to do that in the 2000s, but like nice try. And that was something that I was not expecting to get out of Midnight Sun. Not that I thought that it wasn't true, but I just didn't think that Stephnenie would like insert that as kind of.
It's pretty brilliant, right?
Yeah, it's so specific, and it like weaves in so naturally that like unless you're really looking for it, you probably wouldn't. Like if someone read Midnight Sun first and had never read Twilight, they would just be like, oh yeah, okay. But it's like having all of this like institutional knowledge and like knowing this character, it's really nice to get those like very specific intricacies of his brain.
Amy?
I'm surprised this one wasn't brought up yet. I agree with everything everybody said, but the fact that he at the end of by the end of the book still had in his mind that he was going to leave. Like, to me, that was huge. You know, it's like New Moon was destined to happen, no matter what.
It stopped Shelley from saying.
Yeah, that's what she stopped me from saying. That's what I texted Lori. Like when I was finishing it, I was on such an Edward high the whole time. Mm-hmm. And then that whole thing when he's talking about, like he was lying to her and he was just going to leave at some point, even though he knew. Alice saw what a wreck she was going to be. And I texted Lori, I was like, oh, he was going to leave the whole time. I was so
sad.
He said, but that's close.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I said.
But sorry, Amy, continue.
No, I mean, that it kind of like, you know, rocks the world a little bit. And like, if you go back and reread New Moon now, it's like, well, I mean, it was destined to happen. Like it just, this is the circumstances that led to it in New Moon. But like he was always at this point in Twilight planning to go. And so I have not been one of the people that's been a proponent for like, let's get other stuff from Edward's perspective. I rather hear others' perspective, but there's definitely a little bit more I would like to know. And honestly, I'm actually been going back and looking at rereading the correspondence from Stephnenie Meyer on the Twilight Lexicon. You should all go check them out. And there's a moment where there's a question that she answers where I think she says like, she has 2 chapters from, I think, New Moon that she could potentially write from Edward's perspective.
I think one of them, now that you've mentioned it, I was thinking long and hard about it. I think somewhere in the vast recesses of like 3 computers ago, I had a segment from Edward's perspective of him getting the phone call from Rosalie about, because didn't I go looking for that? I was with somebody and I'm like, I think I have the, I think I read the phone call from Rosalie from Edward's perspective. Is
I remember that somehow. I feel
I
like
remember her releasing that, the phone call from Edward's
Yeah.
Edward, because he was like under a bed in Chile or something like that. And I was like, why is he under a bed?
It is,
As you would, right?
Or he was like he was in the rafters. That's what he was.
like in an
He
attic
was
or
like
something
in
like
the
that.
rafters. He was like in the attic of some dark, creepy, and he wasn't eating and he wasn't going outside and he wasn't doing anything. He was just laying there literally waiting to die when he got the phone call.
so it's like, it's buried on StephanieMeyer.com. That section is, but like, they're not, what's on there is not like full chapters. And what she said made it sound like she had 2 full chapters. So I'm like, I want those now. Where are those, Stephanie? We got the Midnight Sun. We're gonna start bugging you for the other things you've told us that you were gonna give us.
So can I ask an offshoot question to this to see if you guys did the same thing? Given that we read this from Edward's perspective, I started inferring as I was rereading the other books, what he would have been thinking or doing, or kind of going back to some of my favorite moments and thinking, oh, I bet that wasn't at all what Edward was doing now. Did you guys do that too?
Yeah. Like even when back, forever ago when that whole thing was released and however long ago, I like just that little bit that we got, I thought, oh my gosh, it's one of those things I get frustrated about because I don't think Stephenie Meyer gets like as much credit as she deserves in these books, because especially reading Midnight Sun and then going back and looking, because it's obvious that there were little things in Twilight that now you read in Midnight Sun, you're like, oh my gosh, that seems so insignificant in Twilight, and like that extra information that we didn't really need. But now you see in Midnight Sun of what was happening or what Edward was doing, or, like dropping the keys. Yeah, there's so much more development there. And yes, I absolutely have done that of like, oh gosh, I want to know, like, is that one of those same parts of like, it seems really like extra information, but now that could be super important, or what was Edward thinking or doing? And yeah, I totally did that. I want more, but at the same time, it's been so irritated about like him still like lying to her and still leaving, because I had always kind of thought somewhere, if he knew how much this was killing her in New Moon, why would he do that? Right. He wouldn't do that. And now to find out, he did. And I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to know anymore what he's thinking. I don't know.
Well, I mean, basically he was so conceited. I love Edward. He's like my favorite character. But
me too. I'm totally Team Edward all the way.
So he was so, though, I guess, like, she's just a human. She'll get over it. She's going to be sad and depressed for 3 months, but what's 3 months, Right. She may not speak to anybody and she may have to go into a home, but that's okay, because like she'll pull out of it. Her. But I'm never going to get over this because like I'm a vampire,
Right.
The 17-year-old boy side really came out to play in that moment.
17 is 17, I guess, no matter how long you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest shock, I actually had to go back. I went back to my original notes of reading it, like literally the first time I read it. And having written, I tried to write from Edward's perspective because that's what my fan fiction was. The biggest thing that I got wrong would then have to be like, what was the biggest surprise for me? Okay. Other than the ending, right. But it was the way he hears voices. The way he hears thoughts that he heard, and like he could be sitting in one classroom and like completely hear the entire conversation, like word for word. Because if you do, don't go and look for it. But if you do go look for my fan fiction, everything that he's hearing, if he ever is like hearing someone else, and it was a conversation that we had in Twilight, it's like the way that I wrote it was like thoughts and feelings and bits and pieces. It was never like word for word verbatim. And he just absolutely hears everything verbatim. And
good observation. Yeah.
Like to be able to see, he would see Bella through someone else's eyes. He could see her face in someone else's mind. I mean, like all of those things, I was like, dang it. I hated to be wrong about stuff like that. And I was like, yeah.
Well, but honestly, like if you, I don't know, I have read a couple other series that are like they're, you know, just guilty pleasure, just, you know, something to read in between something else, but like written by a psychic. If you read like, you know, some stuff like that, that's kind of how they take it in, right? Like what you're talking about. Like, so
like, yeah, they see like images and
so I would, I mean,
clear pictures and but I was wrong. I was completely
that's interesting. I actually didn't think about that.
Even in he also gets all of the intention behind it all. So it's not just the words and it's not just the vision, but he gets the intention, like how they're feeling behind it.
It's more than just hearing, because that's just like I hear others' thoughts, but really like he's seeing and hearing. It's at like everything. Yeah. I don't always know though. The intentions thing though, I don't know that he always gets that quite right.
Well, I think from the tenor of somebody's thoughts, like when he's talking about Mike Newton, which we'll get to that in a minute because that cracks me up. I mean, I think that maybe you're right. Maybe some of it is just inference. Like, well, he's thinking vile thoughts, or you know.
I mean, this is, we're, you know, a little bit off topic too, but no, the way that he hears bad people's thoughts, bad people like rapists, versus like Renee coming in like screaming at people in her thoughts. So it's not just that he hears the voices; it's that he hears how our inner monologues work. Yeah. And as a theater teacher, I constantly teach about the inner monologue, like, and as a speech teacher as well. It's not so much what you're verbally saying, it's all the rest of it that's important. And so the fact that he's not just hearing the thought behind it, it's all of this like nonverbal communication, like it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like, at least from how I perceive it, but like he's a version of Arrow. He just can do it without touching you.
Yeah.
That's
well, Arrow can he can see more into your mind.
Right.
He can see deeper, but he has to touch you.
Right.
Edward doesn't have to touch you. That's why Arrow covets Edward, because why would you want? Arrow wants to collect people. I'm sorry, this is off topic. Arrow wants to collect people that have gifts that he doesn't have access to.
Right.
And so like if he finds another tracker and he doesn't have any need for this tracker anymore, he can kill that guy because this one's better. Mm-hmm. So he wants Edward because Edward can do it without touching. Mm-hmm. He can go deeper, but he has to touch you.
I just never connected their abilities. And I like how her magic system works. Like I read a lot of YA fantasy with a lot of magic systems, and it was fascinating because you don't really get to go in depth on that when you're Bella, on like, how does the magic system of Twilight work? It really doesn't do much for you, but like when you're in Edward's head and you are seeing like the how his brain operates and how he can actually see all of those things, it's like, oh, this is like really cool and very specific, and like what would my power be? Like that's all I was thinking the whole time reading it, is like, what would happen to me?
We are 30 minutes in and we have only answered one question.
Edward's a wordy little boy.
All right. What was the funniest Edward moment for you? The funniest Edward moment. Heather, we're going to start with you. What did you think was the funniest Edward moment?
So I had like 12 different things picked out because I honestly just like couldn't. But I've landed on one. Anything with Emmett, first of all, because him and Emmett were just like hilarious to me. I would do like, I want them to do like a like a buddy detective movie where they like go around. Like that's like a 21 Jump Street sort of thing. Like I want that. But I really loved, someone on Twitter had actually put how Edward just like never knows how horny Bella is about him. And they did like this side by side of like Bella being like, I was staring at his chest, but his face is so beautiful. And Edward's just over there like, is she okay? Like, what's going on? And like every single moment that he's confused by her heart rate or her eyes or anything, I'm like dying because I'm just like, I know you're 17, but like, come on, sir. Like, you've seen enough of people being attracted to you to know.
Oh, he even passes it off at one point.
Yeah.
There's one point in there where he's like, usually when the eyes go like that and the pulse goes up, that means they're attractive. But that can't be what Bella.
She can't want
Not at all.
I'm like, are you that thick, sir? Like, what is happening here? So yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite and funniest parts.
Mel, how about you?
So like Heather said, a lot of the funniest moments are with Emmett. And that's definitely one of mine, is when they're sitting in their Spanish class and Edward decides, I have the page pulled up, that he wants to do an experiment in human nature so that he can kind of help out Angela in a way. So that Ben will maybe finally ask her out. So I thought it was I thought it was cute, but I also thought it was funny because Emmett just kind of sits back and he's like, wait, what have you done to my brother?
Amy?
Yes, we talked a little bit about it last week, but Emmett is amazing. But one that made me laugh was when after Edward leaves Bella's room and he kind of wanders off he realizes that she went into the forest and is like following her trail. And he's, thinking about, he wants to know, like, what was she doing? Why was she out here? And he says, it made no sense. And unlike those other points of curiosity, I could hardly bring this up in casual conversation. So Bella, I was following your scent through the woods after I left your room. Just some minor breaking and entering. No need for worry. I was exterminating spiders. Yeah, that would be quite nice for her. Like, that just made me like laugh. Like him just kind of being, silly and kind of, a moment where he actually has levity in his brain. Like I super appreciated. And the whole spider thing that happens earlier when he kills the spider in that moment, it made me laugh.
Erin?
I don't know. It's not necessarily, I just think it's kind of funny, like how, I don't know how little he thinks of Rosalie, like how just he describes her brain of just being very shallow. Like that cracks me up for some reason. And then like, I don't know. I also found it just, and maybe not in like a comical way, but maybe just like a kind of way where he's like, yeah, she's pretty for a human. Like, I don't know why that just kind of made me like laugh. Like, okay, so I don't know. It opened a whole nother thought process to me, but just, yeah, there's a lot like the Emmett stuff, of course. I mean, I don't know. I loved Emmett anyway, but then like their conversations together or whatever just made me love him even more. There was lots of good Emmett.
Shelley?
So I loved his jealousy with the human boys. And when he was like avoiding, Bella during that time, but still like watching her, and Mike Newton keeps coming and sitting on the desk and he goes, I frequently amused myself by imagining backhanding him across the room and into the far wall. It probably wouldn't injure him fatally, ... And then another one is where Tyler, the whole car scene, where Tyler runs out, or Eric, before she gets to Tyler, Eric, and he said, I was abruptly, because Eric ran up to her and she goes, hey, Eric, and he said, I was abruptly and unexpectedly anxious. What if this gangly teen with his unhealthy skin was somehow pleasing to her? Poor kid. Oh God, that's so funny. I mean, Edward just totally being like this gangly and unhealthy skinned teen.
But doesn't that speak to his like Victorian nature? Instead of saying, this kid that needs a sandwich and's got zits all over his face.
Like,
You know, gangly
Unhealthy.
teeth with unhealthy skin.
I loved his voice. I loved that about his voice. Yeah.
Okay, so one place that like I literally, as I was reading, I turned the page and I went, "Blah!" I like laughed out loud. This is on page 232 actually. This is as he's listening to Bella talk to her friends about him at school.
That's a great scene.
And you turn the page and it's literally, you turn the page and the first line, because let's see, it says, Bella didn't look at Jessica. I mean, do you really like him? Yes. Look at that blush. How much do you like him? Jessica demanded. And you turn the page and Edward thinks the English room could have gone up in flames and I wouldn't have noticed.
Aw.
He's like, you like me? What is she gonna say? Because he still hasn't figured out the sexual attraction thing.
So ludicrous that he didn't get it. It's just
Didn't get it.
But it's like
I
so
think he's
typical
so
of dating.
slow to pick up on it. He's so brilliant, but somehow that eludes him. I still don't understand that.
I mean, have any of you met a man that just like knows that you like him unless you outright say it to their face? I feel like that's just
This is true. This is
like-
true.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now from funny to dark, what do you think was the darkest Edward moment? We're gonna start with Mel.
Oh gosh. There's a few of them. But I think the one that kind of drew me was when he discusses how, a little bit in his own mind, how he'd left and when he came back to Esme and Carlisle, because he's thinking about what would happen should he do something to Bella, and that makes him think of that past time. And I don't know why it stands out as so much darker to me. I think it's just because like you finally see that moment of like, not just, you know, he's relying on Alice for future visions and all this stuff, but he's thinking about things that he has done. And he's like, okay, so now what happens if, and what is it going to do to my family if?
And that moment is such an interesting moment because I found this book pretty spiritual. I mean, we could have like a discussion on that, but that's the prodigal son. That's the story of the prodigal son that she's woven into this book. And so if you're not familiar with that story, that the prodigal son leaves and does all of this stuff against his family, and yet when he comes home, the father welcomes him with open arms. And Edward, you know, that like thinking, are they going to notice that? I mean, that's the part you're thinking of, right? Are they going to notice that my eyes aren't totally gold yet? Are they going to know? Are they going to know? And Carlisle and Esme are just like, yes, you're home. Yay. Yeah.
I love
So
them.
beautiful. Oh, so beautiful. Heather.
Okay, so it feels really funny to make mine a place where he literally says darker, but on page 21, it's one of Alice's visions of the future, and it's basically when he sees Bella Swan dead and that he's got red eyes, and like he's really like coming to terms with the fact that that's a potential future for him in that moment. And Alice is like, you're leaving? And he's like, am I? And he's just like pissed. And that was, to me, like the darkest moment of the book, only because I kind of felt like that was when you were still really unsure in his own head if he was going to do something or not. Like after that, he kind of had more resolve and like was a little bit more committed to like leaving to like try to protect her or whatever. But at that point, it was still pretty open door in his mindset of like, do I kill this person? I think I might. Like Emmett's okay with it, so I think everybody else should be too. And I felt like that was kind of, you don't really get to see a lot of Edward low points like that. And I liked that it's like right out of the gate, page 21, you're just slapped in the face with the fact that from the moment he meets her, he's just not only plotting her death, but also it's being very much foreseen by someone he loves and trusts.
Shelley.
So I'm going to say, I originally thought it was going to be the classroom. because, you know, he's plotting murder of all those kids. But actually, I think, and it kind of surprised me too, he was still undecided per Alice going into the meadow. And even at the meadow, there was still a little bit of the monster kind of telling him to go ahead and kill her. And I was like, wow, reading Twilight, I know he was saying that to her, but I guess part of my mind just thought he was postulating, saying, look, I'm dangerous. And she's like, yeah, whatever. But no, he, even leading up to then, I inferred that could have very easily gone either way. I mean, I think he was already in love with her, and I don't think he would have done it. But there was at least a fraction of possibility that was still the case. And that's what Alice was saying. And I thought, wow, that's really dark. It was a lot scarier, the meadow scene, than how I read it in Twilight.
Amy?
Well, I was going to go with the classroom. So, I mean, it's so early in the book, and it's like this suddenly, you know, it's such an important moment. It's the Bella Edward first meeting moment, and Bella's so confused by it. In the movie, he so looks like he's going to vomit. But like everything that goes through his head, and you're reading this, and he's like, yeah, she's still like taking the step when she's like still like in mid stride, where all of this has gone through his head because it all happened so rapidly. But like the fact that like for a moment he's like, I'm going to kill everybody in this classroom, and how, you know, and then thinking about the different ways to do it. I'm like, dude, if you kill an entire classroom, there's no way of covering that up. But if you're gonna kill everybody in forks, and that's still not gonna help. But yeah, I mean, the fact that like he jumps right to that as soon as he smells her, he's like, I gotta kill her and everybody here. It's pretty dark stuff.
Erin?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the same thing about the meadow, and that could even be like one of the surprising, you know, answer to that question. It's like one of the surprising things, because I was the same way. I thought like whenever he, like, yes, you know, he struggles, but then like whenever he decides to go there with her, I kind of thought that maybe he had that more wrapped up than he did.
Me too.
And then like, you know, when they kiss and his mouth has like venom, and like that to me was more that was pretty dark. And then I'd say at the end, whenever he's I don't know, deciding you know, that he's still not going to stay, like that, even as happy as he is with Bella, and then he's still, you know, wish I'd taken better notes, but there's like, he says something with that, like, done with that, and went, you know, back to brooding or whatever like that. Like he still can't let himself just be happy with her. And I guess that's, you know, kind of Twilight, like the whole series. Like you just need to, I don't know, have faith in this. But I mean, I think what the meadow to me definitely was a dark thing, that he still was that close, and then trying to show you know, his skin was really trying to scare her away. And I thought the same thing, like in Twilight, like it's still like he's kind of given up on that, but you know, like kind of a last ditch effort of like, yeah, I can scare her away, but I didn't know it was as serious as it could go either way.
Right.
So that was pretty dark to me.
Yeah, it's interesting how most Twilight fans, when you ask, like, what do you think was like the most romantic part of Twilight, the book, it's the meadow. But yet it was really dark and creepy in this book. And somebody last week said that the meadow was very disappointing. Who was that? One of us said that was one of like the biggest disappointments of the book. Was that you?
I mean, I could see that. It went on for way too long, and I was like falling asleep reading it.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, so I mean, I agree with that. Honestly, though, I'm gonna echo what the rest of you have been saying, that the classroom, and again, it goes back to reading my original notes. The very first time I ever saw anything from Edward's perspective, because I remember Stephnenie had said that her mother had said Edward was too dark and creepy. And so as I was reading it, because she warned me, she said, you're going to think he's dark and creepy. And I start reading it and I'm like, oh man. And I think I had to put like, wow, he is kind of dark and creepy. And then I got to the line, honestly, it's this line. It's on page 12. After he's already imagined how to kill Bella and then what he would have to do to stop everyone from getting out. And he says, her blood would cool. So the witnesses first then.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
It was like chilling that he is a killer, and I think it's good that that's first, and it's good that we didn't read this first, that we read Twilight first, but that's such a wake-up call that Edward is not human. Edward is an animal. He is an other, and it is his nature to kill things.
And he's been telling us the whole time.
And we're just like, no.
Yeah, we're like, no, you're just too cute. We don't believe you. It's totally fine. Totally fine.
I die if I don't kill things, okay? Yeah. Okay, so now we'll jump to something good. We did something good, then we did something bad. Now we'll do something good again. What do you think is the most romantic Edward moment that we get in this book? And we're going to start with Erin this time.
Oh, don't start with me. Oh, I don't know. It's really hard for me. I'm trying to like back over my notes to narrow it. Like I really had a hard time with this one. I don't know. I think
crazy because I bet all of us through Twilight, we were all like, oh, this is so romantic. His nose on her chin. And then we're from Edward's point of view and we're like, he's not really romantic, is he?
No.
Well, no, I guess like to me,
does he even know that he can have sex? I mean,
right. But like, I guess to me, the parts where like, you know, we get so in Twilight, we get so from Bella's perspective where she's so self-deprecating. You know, we never really like, you know, we get that like they like her in Forks because she's the shiny new toy, but from her perspective, she's so plain. And then we start seeing from Edward whenever he like maybe isn't gonna kill her so much that he can start looking at her instead of just as a thing to eat and more of who she is, like where he says things like her eyes are, you know, dark like tea and things like that. I don't know. Maybe that's not necessarily romantic as like, aw, like he does think she's pretty. It's not just wanting to drink her blood, because honestly, that's like a lot of it is, oh, how like in Twilight, that's kind of what we hear, right? Is like, oh, her blood, like it just sings to him. I mean, you know, she's a nickname because of that. And it is nice to hear like Edward actually see her more as a person and a human side of it, that like, you know, if it wasn't a vampire human relationship, you know, would he still be attracted to her? Like if her blood hadn't, you know, sung to him, called to him, would he still have zeroed in on her? You know, maybe not, but I think he would have. Like once he got past trying to eat her, he did really like think the human side of her was pretty, and she was interesting and intelligent, and was fascinated by her, you know, choices in books and music and things like that. So I don't know that it was necessarily a romantic part, other than just getting to see Edward really like fall in love with the human side, like the human side of him fall in love with the human side of her, rather than just this bloodlust that we hear about. So I don't know that that's really an answer to your question, but maybe.
Mel, do you have a moment? Do you have a part?
Oh, yeah, like you said, it's really hard kind of finding the romance with this side of it all, because it's just so, he wants to, you know, make sure that he's not killing her, but then also that like nothing else is coming of harm to her. So I don't know that it's necessarily romantic, but I do think it's kind of sweet that like he did go through all of that trouble at the baseball game when the nomads are about to arrive, and he's yes, he is relying on Alice. And I know we've discussed before that sometimes Alice just moves the story forward and that's all she's there for. But like with this, it was, he wanted to know, okay, what would happen if this happened? What would happen if this happened? Can I get away from here fast enough? And I felt like there was part of that was like the romantic notion of whatever I have to do to save her, I will do right now, no matter what. So I think that's probably the only part that I was just like, okay, yeah, that to me hits in a more romantic way and not just like, no, I'm just saving her life. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Amy?
The lemonade bottle lid and putting that on the piano. That to me is like, you know, it's not something where the two of them are together, but it's a moment that like he took that thing that had so much meaning to him, and then to pull it out while his mom and her sister are sitting there as he's at the piano. I love that.
Was that in the original draft? Because I don't remember that.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I've been like, I mean, I love that moment. So that's, you know, when things happen to the bottle cap later in the book, I was like, no.
It jumped out to me as a Disney fan. It makes me think of the grape soda. Mr. From Up. Yeah.
I hadn't even put that together, but you're so right. But isn't that such like a cute, like, I remember like my, not to talk about me too much, but my husband is my high school sweetheart. Like we went to prom together. We've been together for 25 years or something ungodly like that. But I remember when he and I first started dating, like little things like that, like something really insignificant. Like on the first time I saw him, somebody loaned me a sweater, and I still have that sweater. I didn't give it back in my cedar chest. And it's like just a random nothing. It's like a tree company sweatshirt, and we were on motorcycles and it was cold and somebody gave it to me. It wasn't even from him, but it reminded me of that night. And like I wore that sucker all the time, and it was so ugly, and yes, I stole it, but it reminded me of meeting my husband.
Well, but see,
little card,
that thing, that taking little trinkets, it's very Victorian. And it's very who wrote Pride and Prejudice?
Jane Austen.
Yeah.
It's because like if you've ever read Emma, who's her friend? The silly little friend.
Oh God, what is her name?
Elton's. She takes Mr. Elton's like pencil and the thing that like was the little bandage, and she's made like little trinkets out of them. Yes. So taking something
I'm like, it's Ty and Clueless, but I can't think of what it is in Emma.
It's a tape. She has a tape because it has the rolling with the home.
Yes.
Yeah.
So funny. Yes. But that exactly, where she has like all this little, like, that would, if somebody else opened your locker or whatever it was, they would think it was trash and toss it. But it has so much meaning to you that you just, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't thought about that.
Heather?
I was actually talking with a few of us prior to this that the bug killing was my like that is like a really great way to describe like my love language, and that like he cared about her enough to kill a bug that is completely innocent. It's not gonna hurt her. Yes, he's in her room like without her permission. We can get into the semantics of that later, but he killed a bug for her. Like that's really sweet. Like he as a vampire thinks that is gonna harm her, when in reality she lives in Forks where there's bajillions and millions of bugs and things outside. So like, what are you gonna do, Edward? I really felt like a lot of the things that hit me in this book the hardest were like the firsts for Edward. Like the first time he feels like he's truly gonna kill her, the first time he like that to me was a first true like I am emoting towards this human person and I don't really know why, but like I'm kind of acknowledging it. I just really liked kind of seeing him come across all of these like new emotions and new levels of himself that he hadn't really given a second thought to, especially where he right in the beginning is like talking about Tanya and how he just like can't reciprocate, and how he's just kind of like, I don't know, she's hot, but like whatever, like his vibe is just like so like cool dude in school who doesn't date anybody, and then just like Bella just rocks his world just like immediately by breathing, and I just like love that.
But how ironic that the thing that is the most dangerous to her killed this little insignificant bug.
Like, dude.
The
He's
irony.
like, I might kill her for the next.
I don't
2
think
months.
Stephnenie gets the writing credit that she really should deserve. I mean, the irony of that.
Yeah.
Shelley.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about when they're in bed because I do like that part.
Let's do it.
I am unclear why we haven't discussed this before now. But the part where Bella is asking him about sex, I thought was hilarious, and he's so obtuse. And then when she says to him, she sighed, but it sounded like a pleased sigh when he said, "That's nice. We have that one thing in common, at least." They're talking about their virginity. And she said, "Well, do you find me attractive in that way at all?" Stupid Bella. And he says, I laughed out loud at that. "Was there any way in which I did not want her? Mind and soul and body no less than either of the others. I smoothed her hair against her neck. I may not be a human, but I am a man." And that is sort
one
of
of my favorite lines ever.
Yeah.
this is indicative of
I
my
can't. That line makes me laugh every time. I just can't think it's
It is?
I'm like turning red.
You are. And I think what is also really telling, outside of being a really cool, like, that's hot part, I felt like Edward tells Bella this much, but he's thinking this much. So he laughs and he's having all of these huge feelings like, "I love you and I want you in every way." And then he says to her, "I'm a man." You know, I mean, he doesn't give her, all of that good stuff,
I have a penis and it works.
Too well. It works too well.
Spoiler alert, you're gonna find that out. Now I'm turning red.
As long as it's not just me, we're fine. It's good.
When we all read Twilight, weren't we wondering, like, or maybe it was just me, like, can he? I mean,
I got asked so many times, if he doesn't have blood in his body, how does he get an erection? Okay,
Who cares?
here's my answer to that.
He's constantly
You
hard.
believe he's dead and walking around. You believe he's a vampire sucking people's blood, and his skin is hard like stone, and he sparkles in the sun.
But that's what trips you
Why
up.
can you not believe he gets an erection?
There's some
Let it go.
There's some
Okay.
really, really
That's
great
the part
TikToks
we have a hard time with.
about that,
What?
where it's like, there's some really great TikToks where it's like, poor Bella has like super ice cold Edward and then like super duper hot Jacob. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the thoughts that I didn't need to like expose to the younger generation. Like, I already went through this. You guys don't need to do this with me again. Too much.
So one of my favorite romantic lines or romantic parts echoes one of my favorite romantic parts in the entire series in Eclipse. I've said this before, when he says to her in Eclipse, you might not be that kind of girl, but I'm that kind of guy. And had we met, this is how I would have courted you, and all of that kind of thing. So there's a part that's kind of echoed like that in here. This is on page 134, when he says, "I didn't know how to do this, how to court her as a normal human, how to court her as a normal human, modern man in the year 2005. As a human, I would have learned the customs of my time." And he's like, how do I do this? And then that leads into all of the ways that the other Cullens fell in love, and him trying to think, okay, so that's how they did it, and that's how they did it, and that's how they do it. How do I do this?
It's really sweet.
And
It's also funny for me because I was in high school in 2005. So like, boys were not like Edward Cullen. They did not court you.
No.
I can confirm.
that's the point. Emily in the chat says, "Thanks for bringing up the bed scene, Shelley."
Hey.
Oh, and just for everyone on that's in the chat with me, I always say your name wrong. Montserrat just typed the word pomegranate. We were like, would somebody really type the word pomegranate? Yeah.
You get 1,000 points, imaginary Edward points.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's impressive.
I'm spoiling the ending of all of this. We have a secret word. I almost want to give you, I think I will. In fact, I think I will give her one, because we were like, Mel had said, I think the secret word should be pomegranate. And I was like,
I said it.
Oh, did you say it? Amy said it? Pomegranate? And I was like, who's going to type pomegranate?
Yeah, I was trying to think, I'm like, how would that even be worked in unless we specifically talked about the cover?
We're going to have to somehow work in the cover of the book to get somebody.
Right.
I'm like, is anybody going to talk about pomegranate? Because who was going to type pomegranate? She typed pomegranate.
A+.
All right. So next question. Your favorite moment interact with another Cullen. We're going to start with Amy because I have a feeling I know what it is. What's your favorite moment with another Cullen? Let me guess. It's with Jasper, right?
Yeah, totally with Jasper. No, it's with Rosalie.
Which one? But which moment would you pick?
Oh my gosh. There are a lot of good ones, but page 288, when Edward has this whole moment alone with Esme, and it's like everybody else has gone from the house and she's waiting for him, and it just talking to him about what's going on. I mean, it's like, what, 2.5 pages, but like, you kind of have said, Esme always is done dirty in these books. She never gets enough attention or credit.
Yeah.
And to actually kind of have a moment between mother and son, that was my heart. I mean, there are other moments. I mean, Carlisle Christmas, all those, but like, this is a moment too that's not a flashback either.
Yeah.
So
True.
yes.
In the moment, happening in the moment. Yeah. Erin.
I again, like that, I always love Emmett, but I think this made him more endearing to me. I don't know, like anytime he talked, but Emmett just kind of cracks me up, and even it's kind of bad, but when he's like, yeah, just kill her, so what? Like, I don't know why that kind of makes me laugh, like, meh, whatever. So like, just kill her, we'll move on. That, I don't think that's my favorite part, but it's just kind of like, that's Emmett. I loved their interactions in school together, like where they kind of just seem like brothers, like there is a point where you get to, and I think that's what I was really excited about in this book, is that I always craved more Cullen time, because like any scene where we get like, in the regular series where we're in their house and we're seeing their interaction and them talking, like I wanted so much more of that. So I could have really used more of that in this book, quite honestly, but I did like those moments. And yes, like I always did find it weird where like a mom and a relationship with a mom and son is so important. And yes, I know she's not their biological mom, but like they say, she's our mom, for all these purposes. So it was cool to get to see that. But I don't know. I just have to say, like, the parts of just Edward getting to kind of be more jovial with Emmett, like just more relaxed. I don't know. I think you see him more relaxed with Emmett than anybody else. And maybe that's just because nothing is too deep. It's kind of surface, but I don't know. I was going to go easy. Like, I love Alice. So there were a couple Alice moments that I really liked, but I don't know. This one I liked, it made me like Emmett a lot more.
Heather?
So, and I've mentioned this before, so sorry for people that hear me say this repeatedly. I just really wanted more like pre-Bella Cullen time. I just wanted to know, what's your day-to-day, guys? What you doing? What you hanging out? I said, like, last week I said Big Brother, but like for the Cullens, like I just want to like chill. I just want to know what's going on. And so one of my favorite lines is when it's with Emmett, but honestly it could be with any of them, but when he's just like, so is the new one afraid of us yet? And you're not really talking about Bella, like in the way that everybody else talks about Bella. Like Edward doesn't really have interactions with anybody once Midnight Sun starts that aren't about Bella in some way, shape, or form, which is like, there's little tiny bits here and there, but it's like, it's mainly surrounding her. And Emmett's really the only one that he has like conversations with that are like, oh, hey, I'm gonna set up these humans, or like, oh, doing this.
Yeah.
Just like, they just seem like they have like this camaraderie that Edward feels so free with Emmett's mind that it lets him like kind of have these moments where he can just talk and be a person and not really think about it. Where like I love his interactions with Alice, but I also feel like she's always like zooming through thoughts.
It's a lot for him, right?
Yeah, it's too much. And like he, I think, still feels guilty when he talks to like Carl and Esme about stuff like this, because he's still dealing with like, is he gonna kill Bella? Is he gonna like uproot their family? Obviously Jasper and Rosalie are like not loving him so hard. And it really does feel like Emmett is his only like confidant and his only like true friend that he can just be like, hey, I just want to be an asshole right now. Are you okay with that? And Emmett's like, yeah, let's do it. And it's, I really love that. It was like really refreshing to see, because I didn't realize, having been obsessed with these books and movies, that they were like, had that close and like,
yes,
relationship.
Exactly. I never thought that either. I always thought he was like a lot closer. I don't know. I just thought because of the way their minds work, like him and Alice were so close. And yes, they are. But it, like you're saying, that's why I love those parts of him and Emmett, because you get to see him. And that's, I mean, kind of what we all want is like more of Edward, right? So you get to see like just him being him. And like, I don't know, like there's so much fan fiction back in the day that was like just mundane stuff of like camping trips or like movie night or whatever. And you can see that everybody's craving that. Like they just want that time to see what, and it's so interesting too. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack, but I'm like, yes. That's
no,
what I
love it. I'm so glad that I'm not alone in that. I just like, I love the mundane Cullen stuff. I'm like, let's just talk about them sitting around a table, just chat about their day.
Shelley?
I think my favorite, I really still loved his interactions with Alice, and the part, and it's on page 390, when he's talking to Bella and he thinks back to the first time that Alice ran up to him. And he says, I wasn't frightened by what might have been construed as an attack. Her thoughts were so sure of me, so full of love for me. I thought I'd had the first memory loss of my second life, because this tiny immortal knew me perfectly, better than anyone else in my current or former family. Who was she? And then in her head, oh, Edward, at last, my brother, we're finally together. And she ran up and threw her arms around him. And I really love seeing that part of when they met, and how she was just like, just so Alice, running up and loving him right away. And the fact that he was actually accepting of it too, because I don't think just anybody could have run up and thrown their arms around Edward and he would have been okay with it.
Well, but she knew that he could hear her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mel?
So it's actually one that we discussed during Twilight Tuesdays this week. And it's in chapter 7, when Edward's sitting at the piano and Alice comes over and plays with him. And then Esme is also there, thinking about all of this. And I'm just like, that the whole thing of that, which really kind of starts even further on like 146, 147, that whole exchange was just so truly magical to me. And I was like, this is the stuff that I am here for. Like, this is what I love getting to see those little things. And Alice already knows she loves Bella. So like getting to see her then kind of contribute to the lullaby, I was like, oh, so precious. I love it.
So my favorite moment with a Cullen that I picked, because all of those were great, was one that somebody said was their funniest moment, was with Emmett and the classroom with the Angela thing. And it's specifically when he says, Edward, he's right behind you. And Edward goes, huh. Edward. I can see this in a movie. It's like I totally see it in my head. Can't you just see Cullen Lutz and Edward? He's behind you. Huh.
I could see Rob doing that perfectly.
And that's the line.
Perfect.
Oh, huh. I love that. Your new favorite Edward line. I'm just gonna say mine right now is huh. No. Your new favorite Edward line. What is your new favorite Edward line? So it can't be a line from Twilight. Can't be something that he said in Twilight. And then as I was trying to pick this, I was like, who wrote this question? Oh, they need to be shot. I'm the one that wrote this question. Mel, do you have a favorite new Edward line?
So it kind of expands a little bit extra, but one of the quotes that I got to do way back when was about Rosalie, and it was trying to place that. But from that, because he just is not about Rosalie, he hates Rosalie, let's be real. A lot of people also hate Rosalie. I love Rosalie, she's my favorite. But when Carlisle is just, sitting there like, Rosalie, I can't do anything. And he just says, she doesn't mean for you to heal him. She means for you to save him. That to me was, it was so sweet because he has so many issues with Rosalie that I was just like, for him to acknowledge that she is suffering and she is in pain because Emmett is dying before her very eyes. That was just, it was so sweet for him to be able to just say that to Carlisle and not let his own feelings and emotions get in the way of it.
Oh, Heather.
I was really hoping you were gonna pick me.
Oh.
I like all of my favorite lines are like just internal monologue, which is really hard, but it's just like I had a really hard time. I went through like a lot of them and I was like, oh, I like that line, but like, nah.
No, I'm the same way. Like my favorite, like the lines that he says. Yeah. It's all like internal monologues.
Yeah, he's got some good one-liners in that brain of his. But like, I guess if I had to pick like one that was one of my favorite things is when it's on page 54 when he's talking to Alice and he's like getting ready to leave and she's like going through all the changes of the visions of what he's going to be doing, and he says she sounds like a carnival fortune teller, and I just thought that was like really funny like reference to make for him, just to kind of just like totally like make fun of her ability for a moment and have this like lighthearted like, you sound like a fortune teller, Alice, I'm gonna leave now. It's just like, I know that that's like not how the scene is, but in my head, just by having that line, it just like made it funnier. And I just enjoyed that kind of, I'm gonna say camaraderie again, because my brain can't think of another word, but like just like his relationship with Alice and showing that they do have something that is very like real and true and transparent, and that he can just literally like kind of snap at her in that moment and say that, and she's just like, okay, Edward, like please just stay anyway, like she does not do this. Like but generally all of my favorite lines are internal monologue. Anytime that he's excessively anxious or depressed, I'm like, I got you, Edward, what's up? So
Shelley.
Mine probably, I think it's probably a lot of people's, I don't know, it's internal monologue again, but he says, he's thinking she was impossible. And he says, you don't care if I'm a monster, if I'm not human. And she says, no. And then he thinks, I started to wonder if she was entirely stable. And I thought, I love that line, first of all. And then I thought, as do we all, Edward, we've all wondered that about Then he goes on to think about arranging her care if she's crazy.
Right.
So I suppose that I could arrange for her to receive the best care available. I mean,
I love that someone would have to be deranged to like fall in love with him. That's it.
So that whole piece was, I was like, oh my God, Edward, that's hilarious.
Amy?
I mean, I still love the inner monologue of the the one I said that was the funniest earlier. I just, you know, to be honest, for me, I'm a slow reader, and probably like the last 253 or to 300 pages, I was flying through it to try and get done for our discussion last week. So I don't feel like, even as I'm flipping back through it right now, like, oh my God, like, yeah, that happened. I feel like on reread, I'm going to be like, okay, slow down, take this all in. So I can't say that, like, you know, in some cases, some of these things did not necessarily, they may have jumped out to me in the moment, but they didn't stay with me. So in the way, like, I'm sure there was some moment of like, oh, Edward, that's, you know, awesome. Or this quote was great. Or like, oh, that wasn't in Twilight, but it hasn't stuck with me. So that's, you know, one of the challenging things for me.
I think it would be interesting because, I mean, are we all going to read it again?
Yes.
I think it would be interesting to come back in like a year and see if these are still our favorite moments and our favorite quotes and things like that. And did we find things like, make a mental note of this, in like a year, we say, have you found something on your second or your third read through that you were like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that the first time?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, before I really started talking Twilight with anyone, I had like devoured that book like 5 times. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean, I totally agree with you, Amy.
This is not how I would normally tab a book. This is what I do for Twilight Tuesdays as we go through page by page to have discussions about certain things that stand out to us. But like if you look at like what I call like my notes copies or whatever of the other books, the tabs are a lot fewer, but they're calling out those key moments that I'm like, this is, you know, something that had meaning to me, or like this moment of dialogue, or this had important parts of the story that I just haven't been able to like do that level. It's been like over indexing as I'm rereading chapters right now. And so the first time I didn't want to index at all because I just wanted to read it. So yeah, it will be one that we return to, unlike, you know, Life and Death, I haven't read since the first time, but this one, like, I feel like it's going to take a couple times through.
Well, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
Erin, do you have a favorite line?
Well, I'm kind of right there with you because like I'm still there where like I'm processed. I just like the way Edward talks too, right? Like, and I think that's again one of the really cool things about this book is that, you know, you get so used to Bella's head and the way her inner monologue goes, and then I think that Edward, I just like the way he phrases things. But something that just like it, I don't know that it's my favorite yet. Like exactly what you guys are saying. Like I don't know, with Twilight and like all the other books, I had quotes like embroidered on crap because I, you know, loved them so much. I'm not there yet. But again, like with you, I read that so many times that I could like dissect it and knew these little parts and, you know, whatever. Something that just sticks out at me that I liked, it was just kind of humorous maybe, is the part where she's like, how old are you? You know, and when we read that in Twilight, like it's so you're hanging on the word. But I love in Midnight Sun where he's like, I tried not to smile at, you know, at the patronizing tone a while. Like, I don't know. Again, that's not my favorite, but it just stuck out at me. I just think it's funny just now, like he's trying to answer, but he realizes it's kind of like a smart ass thing to say, and he's, you know, but there are some other ones that are a little, I'm just trying to see where I had written them down, like that were like, though I hated her, I was absolutely aware that my hatred was unjust. I knew that what I really hated was myself, and I would hate us both so much more when she was dead. Like stuff like that. I'm sure on rereads I'm gonna be like, oh, you know, all swoony again. But just things like that are sticking out at me, and just I don't know. I'm just so team Edward. I know those. The more I go back on rereads, they'll really be favorites.
So mine is also in those internal monologues because I can't escape the really great lines that he says from Twilight. And whoever wrote this question that said you can't pick a Twilight quote. So there's two things that like really stood out to me about the way Edward talks. And one of them is, I really wish we had heard his prayer that Stephnenie said was like her favorite thing that she wrote in this was when Edward prayed for Bella. And I wish we could hear his prayer, because think how eloquent it would have been. And especially like at the very end, I prayed to her God with all my anguish of my damned lost soul that he or she or it would help me protect Bella from myself. I wish we could hear that prayer. I just really wish we could. And we didn't get it. Fan fiction. But then the other thing that there's, and I'm going to have to, again, this is like a second read through thing I'm going to have to look for. In the first chapter of this, when he's seeing this face in everybody's mind, just this ordinary girl that's causing all this fuss. And then like 6 or 7 chapters later, he's thinking, wait, you think she's ordinary? She is nothing ordinary. She is perfection, you know? And so it starts off with him thinking, oh, just this ordinary girl that everybody's fussing over. And now she's not ordinary. Oh no, did we lose Erin?
No, I'm here.
Your picture, there you are.
I don't know how that happened. Sorry.
Jennifer Johnson said, that's my favorite part. What's your favorite part? The prayer or the ordinary part? Because I saw this after I was talking with about the ordinary part. She'll have to respond.
Yeah, I agree with you on the prayer though. And think about like when you pray, it's so personal. I mean, I don't know, to whoever prays, it's so personal and you talk so differently and it's so sincere and kind of like, I can only imagine like what he was saying. And again, like, I love the way he talks. It's so different. I'm with you. I hadn't thought about that either. I would love to hear it.
So you like Erin flashed out and then came back on, and now everybody's in a different position on my screen. And
I don't know what I did.
We're all changing it up. It's like Hollywood Squares.
In the same place for me as Mel. I don't know if okay.
I didn't touch anything, I swear.
Right. We're gonna change gears ever so slightly for this question, and we're gonna ask, is there something you learned about Bella from Edward's point of view that we didn't realize from Twilight? So something new that we might have picked up on about Bella specifically. And we're gonna start with Shelley.
I really don't know. And I've been thinking about this. I think this is the hardest question. So of course I'm first on. So I guess for me, it's not really a revelation about her. It's more of, she really did not know what was going on. I kind of want to be like Bella. There's so much happening you don't even know. Mm-hmm. Like how she got such a fraction of all of this drama and all of this stuff going on, and even his feelings and his thoughts. And you know, when you read Twilight and you're like, oh, he's opening up to her. No, I mean, it's like this much. And it made me just feel like, you know, I know that that's part of the problem with human relationships anyway. So it's just expanded because he's a vampire and he wanted to kill her too. But I think that was my thing, is how very much she did not know.
Mm-hmm. Who was next on the list? Amy.
We learned a lot about Bella's wardrobe, and that she has an ugly green sweater that I have a total vision of what this sweater looks like now. And I totally want it. But yes, her I mean, we knew some about her wardrobe, but man, Edward's version of her wardrobe. Who knew?
Bulky, oversized sweaters and things. Yeah.
Well, just like, you know, again, how awful it was that she has this. I mean, he fixates on that sweater, so it must be pretty bad.
He wants her back in that shirt that she wore.
Yeah. Oh, he loves the blue shirt. The blue makes her skin look like radiant and like cream. And of course, her utterly indecent khaki skirt.
Oh.
But
The khaki skirt. Oh, like, I don't know. I hate khaki to start with.
The sleeveless button-ups, guys. I can't. I'm always gonna bring them up every time. I can't.
Sleeveless buttons up. Mel and I had a whole discussion about that with Twilight, and it was like, what? And yeah, now we know the story behind the sleeveless button up. But yeah, I would say, finding more out. I mean, I have a lot of other thoughts about Bella, Edward, and everything. I think we'll get to questions on that, but the green sweater's sticking with me.
Erin?
I don't know. She came off like I've never been a Bella hater, like, at all. Like, I've always liked her. I think it just, again, like, her narrative is so, like, self-deprecating, and then she totally doesn't know, where Edward's coming from in Twilight. So I guess, like, from Edward's perspective, like, I liked her more. And that's not to say that I disliked her in Twilight, but I just, but of course it's from somebody's perspective of falling in love with her. So we're going to get a different side of her. But she was softer somehow. And I don't know. I liked her more. Like, I could just, the clothes, I have to come on the clothes thing, which is funny to me because in Twilight, I feel like she constantly, like, I don't know, maybe we get so many details, which I love. But then to kind of get it from his perspective where it's not so great, like, she's putting all this thought into it. It's not so great. But I don't know. I guess I liked her more. I can't think of, when I read that question, I've been trying to think about it. I don't know that there's one thing. She seemed just more likable. But again, we're not getting those parts in Twilight. So, and of course we're seeing it from somebody's perspective that's falling in love with her. Of course, we're going to get the better side of her. So, yeah.
That's an interesting point. Let's come back to that about, Mel.
Okay, so part of it kind of stems from what Stephnenie has talked about on her Q&As, and people wondering if Bella received, what ends up being her gift from one parent or the other, and it's both. So getting to see then through Edward's eyes, Charlie's, not being able to fully read him, but then Renee's shouting, I'm like, I've always kind of wondered, like, was it specifically Charlie or was it specifically Renee? So I think getting to see both of those parents from Edward's perspective opened my eyes further to, like, okay, that's why Bella has these different little facets to what her gift is.
It also made me, and this is a little bit off topic, made me realize why they're divorced.
Yeah.
I want a Charlie Renee origin story, please. Give me the deets. How did they meet? Was it at a dive bar in Forks? Like, what's the deal?
There is some, I was like, it's there.
It's there. I just Stephnenied you, Heather.
No, I know. I've read it, but I want the drama version. I want like the OC version of Renee and Charlie.
So I wrote, there was a fan fiction challenge, Take a Walk in My Shoes, and you had to write a fan fiction from a character you've never written from. And I wrote Bella, like, in New Moon when she's like completely depressed and Charlie wants to send her to live with Renee. I wrote that scene from Charlie's perspective and I got it so wrong. And Stephnenie read it and she's like, this is so wrong. And she told me some stuff about them. So I rewrote it and I removed myself from the contest. I said, I kind of have a beta reader that you all don't have. So I'm going to remove myself from the contest. But that was like the first time that I realized everything I knew about Charlie, or what I thought I knew about Charlie and Renee, was completely wrong. Was that. Okay, Heather, it's your turn. What you learned about Bella?
I feel like what I appreciated the most, and again, I know we keep talking about how Stephanie's really an she's underappreciated as a writer in how she just totally does the internal monologues. And I feel like with Bella, it's very relatable and you really put yourself in her shoes. And so you kind of like are projecting all of yourself into her character when you're reading the Twilight Saga. At least that's how I did it when I was reading it. And so I was generally surprised to see not only how different Edward sees her, which is like obviously clear because he's in love with her, he's 17, like we've been over that, like he's smitten, she could do nothing wrong, like just totally love that. And but that he doesn't even like really notice her at first, and how that's just kind of how you are with people in life. Like you will just like be walking down the street and not even notice someone and then like smack into him and suddenly your life has changed. And it kind of just like I felt like did a really good job with Bella for that, where Bella is plain and it's really reiterated constantly in her perspective that she's plain, she's nothing, she's normal, she's a fly on the wall, you're never going to notice her. And Edward does the same thing to her. And it's just like, yeah, she's nothing, she's plain, she's this. And then suddenly he's like, oh my gosh, no, wait, she's actually beautiful. And I love this person for the rest of my life. Like, I just liked that kind of, the way that evolved, and the way that Bella was really just like, that to me is how everybody feels about themselves. And until someone really like falls in love with you and like, or like shows you that you are this like special, unique person, like, you kind of as a teenager are just like, yeah, I'm not special, like I'm just chilling, like I'm not doing anything cool, like whatever. And I liked getting that perspective from Edward, because I always assumed that he just immediately was infatuated with her. And I liked getting to see that he was just kind of like, I don't know, there's this new girl, but like it's not even worth it for my time to like look to know who this is. And like he just was so unimpressed, and it was like shocking to me to get that kind of perspective on Bella, where I really honestly thought, like, kind of similar to how we all were talking about like the meadow scene of like, I thought he was totally okay then, and like was going in knowing he wasn't gonna kill her. I thought that he wasn't gonna kill her, or he was like super into her. Like the second she walked on campus, he was like, this one, I'm gonna take that one.
So my revelation about Bella is a little bit, we've almost touched on it, and they I swear, this was what I planned to talk about, and in the chat, they're totally talking about it. They were saying about her kindness, Bella's selflessness, and saying that she's kinder. And Erin was saying, I like Bella better in this. Well, it's because we see how kind and how giving she is. Like Emily in the chat was saying it, and Jenna Wade was saying it, that the Comic-Con scene was that really stuck out to me when she's like, oh yeah, I'll go to Comic-Con. And then he says, well, San Diego. And you can Edward totally catches that she's like, yeah, San Diego, Comic-Con, you know, and nobody else realizes that she didn't know. She was just saying that. Or partnering with the one girl in class, and
Tara.
and the teacher picking up on that, and you know, all of those little things, those aren't in Twilight, because Bella would never think that way about herself. I love when you said, Erin, that of course Bella seems better in this book because it's from Edward's point of view and he loves her. Of course, Edward seems better in Twilight because it's from her point of view, and she loves him. Yeah.
And you know, Edward even thinks, and it might have been that scene with the Comic-Con thing where he goes, you know, the bottom line is she is good. I mean, he doesn't say it like that. He says it more eloquently, but you know, she's just good, you know? And I think because he sees everybody's thoughts and hears everybody's, like, I think most people disgust him. So it's probably good he can't read her thoughts, right?
She's just like, I just want to lick your face, like all
because if he could have read them all along, I mean, would he have been that sure? I don't know, because she's like,
and it's really interesting, you were talking about Bella's clothes. They have this funny little conversation in the chat about how they were both sleeveless that day. And I remember, Amy, when you, like the picture, wasn't there a poster from Brazil of them sleeveless? And you're like, what are they wearing? And I'm like, That's what they wore. They wore those tacky sleeveless
And I
shirts.
walked you out.
Terrible.
I
I remember
hate
that.
sleeveless clothes on men. It's just a pet peeve. It's weird and stupid, but sleeveless on men. Like I don't like arm hair.
With a collar too. It also has a collar. Like there's so many.
Khaki pants.
Oh gosh.
So bad.
No. It's like the cat vomit. Like I can't. I just don't.
No.
Okay. Is there a moment between Edward and Bella that completely changed for you now that you've seen both perspectives? We're gonna start with Erin. And you guys, my computer like is draining. I gotta find my charger. So go ahead and keep talking because I gotta plug my computer in. Erin, something from like from Twilight that now you completely see it differently.
Not to kind of cheat and talk about something we've already talked about again, but again, the meadow scene. I mean, like, I know we've hit on this, but like that was so nuts to me. And then I don't know. Also, like the way that he talks about her sleeping. Because I think there has been so much like since I first read it and like I had my own opinions on it, right? And that's like anytime anybody I think talks about Twilight that truly hasn't read Twilight and is just going on what they've heard, right? Like what popular culture has to say about it. They focus in so much
rather than just they just go off the movie.
Yes. And they talk about like, oh, it's so creepy. And he, him watching her sleep and blah, 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 like and stalkery, like no, now seeing both perspectives of it. And having I try to keep the movie and the book separate in my mind, even though I know that's really hard. And I do love the movie. But like we just rewatched it too. I also feel very differently about that, or maybe not differently, but like it again, the way that he's doing it, it's not he's sitting there like lusting over her as she's sleeping. Right. And I feel like so many people feel like that's what's happening is that he's like sitting there staring at her nonstop, drooling. That's not what's happening at all. So I think like that, again, I've already said though, like maybe I'm an idiot, but it never bothered me but I never took it, I think, the way other people take it. And then maybe maybe we're just in a different time too, which totally could be. And I'm also, I hate to date myself, but I'm also from a different generation that maybe isn't so self-aware of stuff like that. But I just never took it as stalkery. Like he wants to protect her and he finds her interesting. And there's just all those different things. Now, again, I might take it very differently at 17 if I opened my eyes and my husband was like staring at me. That might be very, 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 very different. But but now having like, when he told her that, I've been watching, like where she says, how long have you been doing that? And you're like, a couple months, like, or whatever in Twilight. And you kind of get her reaction from it. And then you actually get him thinking about it and whatever. It still doesn't come off as creepy to me. It comes off very like protective and loving. And also you have to remember, like, he can't sleep. So I'm sure that's kind of interesting to him. And if you also think about it, like she's not thinking, oh, I think I disappeared for a second.
You're back.
Am I back? Okay.
I hear you.
Okay. But can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So like he can't hear what she's thinking about. It's probably a very quiet, relaxing place for him. I don't know. I mean, there's so much that happens in that book. Maybe it's kind of weird to pick the sleeping thing, but I don't know. I maybe expected her to update it, like make it a little bit different for 2020. I don't think that she did. And of course, like what we talked about, the meadow scene, like knowing that he was so on the fence about that too, going into that, like now seeing both sides. Her side is very dreamy and very like, of a 17-year-old girl, like so in love with this guy, and his is hers is from a very human standpoint, and his is from a very carnal standpoint of like I still really would like to eat her, but we'll see how this goes, so That's my 2 cents.
Heather?
Agree with all of that. For me, I already assumed when I had read Twilight the first time that he was gonna leave in New Moon. I was just like, there's no way that this super hot vampire guy who's like so conflicted is gonna stick around forever. Like, it's too angsty for that. And like my brain was like, he's gonna leave. So I would say that I wasn't necessarily surprised by that at the end. I will always view it differently, knowing specifically how he felt. Because like Shelley had said, I think it was Shelley, where it's like, I didn't actually know that he was like, I've seen that you're going to be depressed and horrible, but I'm okay with that. And I'm still going to do what I want. But I feel like the one true part that really like kind of changed me in this book was like just everything with James and kind of getting Edward's perspective, because like Gloria, you said like Bella's just so out of the loop on everything. She has no idea. She is so in the dark. She thinks she's like this all-knowing person who like gets Edward to come out of his shell and tell her everything, when in reality there's like so much more danger than she's aware of.
It makes her kind of more of a child, right? Like that whole like chase scene and so much that's going on. Oh, I have a question real quick. It's kind of on topic. Like, did we know that like James got from point A to B, like he got on a plane? Like, I don't know how I thought he got there, before.
By that too.
Right? Like, I don't know what I thought had happened there, but I was like, he got on a plane. Like, I thought maybe he stole a car or ran.
I kind of thought he ran.
He ran too, because how can he be around those humans? I mean,
yeah, I thought he ran too because he's he eats people. Plus, I think it would be hard to go to an airport, book a plane, be on a plane, land in Phoenix, and avoid the sun.
yeah.
And he like didn't have on shoes the whole time too, right?
I
What about his shoes?
What's with the shoes?
He like stole like a small plane.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I need to reread.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's like he got on United.
Yeah, he
and
was
all
on
that.
that commercial plane being like,
I thought he was
Okay, I
on a
need some
commercial
peanuts
plane.
and some Biscoff, please.
Yeah.
You
I'll take a ginger ale.
those little prop jets that do little hops from like San Francisco to Forks, and
Yeah. But do we still envision him like, I still don't. Like, and he's so on the hunt.
Right.
I could see him more like, I don't know, like, I don't know what I thought before, like running or like hitchhiking with a trucker and like ending up killing that trucker. Like, maybe I had it just way more of a backstory than just like he got in a prop plane, and I don't know, just off topic, but it was something that I was like, whoa, did we know that? But I guess we wouldn't have.
Right. I always felt like in my head, and probably just because of how Bella perceives it, it's just like kind of quick. So it's just like, yeah, you're just suddenly in Arizona. Like, how you just go from Arizona to like Forks, Arizona. It's totally fine. It's super cool.
Yeah, they're right next door.
Spider monkey jumped.
Yeah. You do portal. Alice opens a portal, you hop through, it's fine.
I thought they ran, like, because as fast as they were talking about them moving around, like in Twilight, I think I just thought they ran. I don't know.
Okay, Amy, do you have an Edward Bella moment from Twilight that completely changed? Have you read them?
I mean, I think for me, something that I thought was really interesting was all of the Bella's suitors, I guess you would call them, and sort of like how they were approaching her, to ask her out, and her view on like what was going through her head, but then like Edward, what he thought he was hearing from her, and like being worried about like, oh, does that mean by her saying that, like, does that mean that she likes him but just doesn't want to go? Like those moments of like in her mind something totally different was happening than what he was thinking, for how he was perceiving it. And for me, that kind of goes back to a bit what everybody was saying before about like liking Bella more. For me, I was like, wow, these two don't know each other at all. I mean, she is, things where he's like, oh, that's so nice. But I'm like, but wait, we know what she was thinking there. And it wasn't nice. So I think that like, they're a little bit too kind to each other, but if they actually knew what each other was thinking, they might not be connecting at all because they are in totally different places at quite a few points.
But that's kind of like 17-year-old love, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like, if we truly knew what each other was thinking, you might not really want to date.
Like that
She's 40-year-old love too.
the idea
Right?
Love.
so good.
True.
Love.
It's relationships.
Yeah.
Shelley, how about you?
Well, I mean, obviously for me, like I said before, the meadow and the ending were two big things that changed for me, given this perspective. But, something that I think was surprising, not only how much Bella didn't know, but how clueless Edward was when he was always guessing so much. He just had no idea. And, like we were talking about before about how he was like surprised it was attraction. It's like, really, Edward? I mean,
I have a theory about that in that Edward's never had to try.
Oh.
He's never had to try.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had to be like, okay, I got to figure this out because I'm not quite sure. He's just been like, oh, that's
so right.
Yeah.
He's always had the upper hand. He knows.
This is the first time that, because if he's able to read minds, then we have to know that he was incredibly intuitive as a human as well.
Right.
So even in his human life, he probably picked up on a lot of stuff that other people didn't pick up on. And so he's never had to try. This is the first time. And so no wonder he's like, wait a minute. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Wait, huh? Wait.
You're so right, because think about it. He probably relies on that so much, right?
Never has had to try.
I didn't think I'd
the
never
first
thought about
time. And that's why he gets it so wrong.
Yeah.
that. That makes me feel so much better, because I was like, are you just that dumb? Like, are you just, that I never thought about that before. But you're right, because like that he's always had that like crutch, if you will, to kind of like he's always operating like that, a sense that we don't have. And now all of a sudden he has to figure it out like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like Alice has never had to wonder, okay, I've got this huge decision. What do I do?
Yeah, which path should I take?
I do.
You can see them all.
It's really
Gosh, yeah. Good point.
Mel, how about you? Got a
how it changed perspective. So very much like Heather, when I read Twilight, I had this like inkling, like he's gonna leave. But I think that it definitely changed the perception, being able to read what he was so conflicted about and it translated then into the hospital scene. Like that entire scene, the dynamic is completely changed.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go because we've battered the ending to death that he's gonna leave. And we keep saying, well, the meadow was so different. For me, in the meadow, what was so different was his intention in letting her see him sparkle.
Yes.
That whole moment is like completely rewritten. And I mean, clearly he's like, don't you get it? I'm awful. I'm bad for you. But I've always taken it from Bella's point of view. Yeah, you eat people, but look at you.
Parcels. The risk I'm willing to take.
And so his intention of, I'm gonna take her here and I'm gonna show her this. And yeah, I'm gonna try not to kill her, and she's not gonna want me anymore.
And Bella's like, I'm just excited to get to spend time with me
anymore.
Yeah.
She's gonna realize. And that was a big eye opener. That was a whole thing where we've always thought it was so romantic.
It's not.
Okay, so when he stepped out into the sun and sparkled in Twilight, we didn't see Bella react and run up to him, right?
No.
So
Yeah.
this was new in Midnight Sun where she thought he was on fire.
On fire. Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
So, and this was the moment that Stephnenie, I guess, was referring to as the one that, like, why has nobody ever asked me about this?
Yeah, because that was missing. Because all the next thing it skips into in Twilight is like he's laying down and she's stroking his arm. You know.
But it does make you think differently. I almost wish that would have been in Twilight, because that's another thing people pick on about. I get really defensive of it. I'm like, read it instead of picking on it. But like it may be because I think people get that wrong a lot too, where they just are like sparkly and whatever. And I'm always like, whoa, Edward, you know, in Twilight even talks about like, this is not pretty to him. This is almost like diseased looking.
Yeah.
Like one point he says that, I can't even remember.
Unfortunate skin, with the unfortunate skin.
And so it's that we had a little bit of that where she, like, it almost kind of redescribes it in your mind, right? Like, had we not have the movie and seen them sparkle, like, what would it, like, her first inclination was like, he's on fire. Doesn't that make you kind of, it describes it a little bit different. Like, I see it a little bit different in my mind's eye.
Amy, what chat were you talking about? Because I haven't been able to hear, I wasn't able to hear everything that she said. I was relying on a lot of what people would feed me with, like, you know, I would say, I emailed you guys and I was like, what did she say that was different? So she actually said, why has nobody asked me about this?
Yeah, she said that, like, there's this moment kind of missing in the meadow that she's surprised that, like, people have not kind of asked her about more often, that it was in there. So then people were asking me, well, what is she talking about? What is she talking about? And the realization is that it must be that moment. Like, we go right to them laying in the meadow. We don't get them that actual reaction from Bella.
Yep.
So I think that's the missing moment.
It's a page turn. It's a page turn.
Yeah.
And it just goes to Edward in the Sun is unlike anything I've ever seen. Yeah. And
yeah.
So, and I should say Edward in the Sun is, in my head, is not like in the movies.
No.
When Edward.
Now, why twinkle? They never were supposed to twinkle. I don't
Twinkle.
Well, and Stephanie's talked about that too, is that, you know, it was never the people, you know, what's in the films is human, and that, you know, it's not what exactly he sees, and that if there's future Twilight redos or reboots or whatever, she's very interested in doing something in animation. And she's referring a lot to the Spider-Verse as being like her point of reference for animation.
Ooh, I hadn't heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, and then you could have all the original cast come back to do the voices.
Yes.
Because all people to play the roles, except maybe Peter Fachinelli now. But
he has to be the only actual person in the whole animated series, constantly shirtless.
Because Peter Fachinelli, we need to see that.
Yeah.
Please come back. Can I see you one time with like blonde hair in that look?
With a doctor's coat on.
Yes.
A doctor's coat.
Oh, it's even better.
Is this a calendar? Can we like make this like January's doctor coat?
Somebody, I mean, back in the day, people used to do like crazy manipulations. I'm sure somebody can turn that into Dr. Cullen.
Just don't use the hair from Breaking Dawn. Don't use the hair from Breaking Dawn.
No.
We all agree that's the worst Dr. Cullen hair.
Yes. New Moon isn't so bad. Like, I don't know, it's softer somehow. It almost looks plastic in Breaking Dawn to me.
Terrible.
So what is
terrible?
What is the biggest question you have for Stephnenie about Edward or Bella? And I feel like Amy and Mel probably need this, because didn't you guys make the shirts that said Stephnenie, we have questions?
We have so many questions.
I'm actually going to change up my order. Mel, I'm going to start with you. What's your biggest?
We have 875,000 questions.
About Edward or Bella. Let's like make it specific.
Honestly, I think, because I know Amy and I have touched on it before, is that like, yeah, from Edward's perspective, he makes Bella look like such this good person, but from Twilight, like we know she's really not. She's not always selfless and caring, and she, you know, she's a teenager. She mocks people just like everybody else. So why is it that from each other's perspective, they see the best, and then therefore, as the reader, we are seeing that? But then if you read them side by side, you kind of love and hate both of them. So like, why didn't you just kind of keep it consistent where Edward got to see those bad things, or where Bella got to see those bad things?
Amy, how about you? You're making a face.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely, so we've talked about this quite a lot. Like even the, you know, talking about like, you know, Eric's skin, Bella has the same reaction. We talked very early in Twilight when she first sees him, she's like making fun of it, you know, thinking nasty thoughts about him and how he looks. I'm like, she does that all the time. So I'm kind of, the whole idea that they're both so good, and I'm like, but they're not. And the fact that like Edward's family is also has moments of like, I think Esme thinks along the lines like, well, you're the, you know, the best of us. I'm like, really? Better than Carlisle? Better than Rosalie? I mean, how many people has Edward murdered? What makes him so great and so good? Because I don't see it. Especially compared to, said, when you got Carlisle and you got Esme and you've got, like, again, if you're talking about murders or whatever, Rosalie's record's better than any of them. What makes him so special?
Because that's their son.
He's Mama's favorite.
He is. He's a mama's.
No, and I'm totally with that. But like, you also can, when it's your favorite, still say, well,
Why?
you know,
No, it's totally
you know,
valid.
they're not perfect. But when she's there, like, you're the, you know, the brightest and the best of us, and I'm like,
Really though?
yeah, really though.
And why is she not with Edward? Why is she with Carlisle?
Maybe she's excluding Carlisle in that thinking. You know, when you think about your kids,
Because
and, like,
Alice
your family.
told her he's gonna be ripped during a pandemic, and you're gonna
But I would say there though, I mean, again, that's another thing all on its own. Like the idea that Esme first saw him when she was 16, totally crushed on him, never forgot about him. And yet, like, that, again, reflections of what is happening in this story, and why have we never like really gotten into, why hasn't the story gotten into that ever? Like, why is there never been a moment of like, okay, let's address this with Bella, that like Esme fell in love with as a human, saw this vampire when she was a teenager, younger than Bella, and never like shared that story, and kind of how it, while it did not necessarily everything in her human life worked out, it worked out. Or that Rosalie found Emmett as a human and took him back and made, you know, had Carlisle change it. Why isn't she more empathetic toward Edward?
Yeah,
I'm going off topic, but
because Rosalie didn't kill Emmett. Emmett was going to die from that bear.
yeah, that's true.
But he could also, if she hates being a vampire so much, she could have let him die.
And she even says that, like, in Breaking, I wish somebody would have given me the choice. Well, you didn't give Emmett the choice.
Nope.
Or maybe she's thinking she's learned from that, but I don't think she would go back because she's like her happiest, you know, with Emmett or whatever. That's a really, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good, good question.
Stephnenie, we have questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? But we're trying to state Edward or Bella.
Yeah, sorry. We'll talk more about that next time.
Who did you say, me?
Heather.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I did not know you said my name. Why are they wearing the clothes that they're wearing? I just don't. I can accept literally everything else. I have thousands of questions that I could ask, and I'm sure like 90% of them are just like author choice. Like, she just was like, you know what, I decide this. But like, Stephnenie, why did we pick these clothes? Was it intentional? Was it just for fun? Were you just like looking at a catalog and it was beside you and you just flipped and like picked a green sweater? Like, I need to know.
Because they are choices, right?
They are very specific choices.
They are.
Shelley, any questions?
I guess mine, because I still struggle with the whole leaving thing at the end, that he was always going to leave. So I want to know if he and Alice really did know the extent of how bad it would be for Bella. Because I think Alice's visions are really interesting. I know they're often a tangle, but she clearly saw her like curled up in a ball in the woods, I think is, that she saw her that first night. Did they see truly how bad it was going to get? I mean, I guess they had to have, but I just want confirmation, I guess.
Yeah. Erin?
Yeah, I'm so bad like at stuff like this, because I think I do that too, where I can kind of just chalk questions up in my head of like, there's some reason behind it. I just don't, it's an author like whatever. But I think I have to agree with that one, because that is what really stumped me. It was like, and like I said earlier, I had always thought in New Moon, if he truly saw how bad this got, he would have come back, or he wouldn't have left, or like this wouldn't have happened this way. Like I don't know why. And it's really interesting to me to hear you guys talk about like that whenever you read it, you totally thought that he was never going to stay. Like when you first read Twilight, and maybe I just was at a different place in my life where it just didn't occur to me. I don't know. That's kind of interesting to me, because I just thought like at the end of Twilight, they were just, it was like he had faced, because of James losing her and what life would be out. Like he had been embattled, and whether he would kill her or not, well, he actually had to face that moment of what that was going to be like, and not going forward without with or without her. So he wasn't gonna leave her. So then I was really surprised like that. I think that was one of the most eye-opening things to me. And so I think that it would kind of be like a 3 or 4 parter there. Like, if he did see it, I couldn't imagine him knowing that pain was going to be there, and how it was going to scar her, and all it like, is that to the extent, or did he think that her laying in the woods like that is just a moment, and like somebody had said earlier, like she's going to pick up and move on, or like she'd said, to the extent of it. And how could he like be faced with James almost killing her, but then like, yeah, that's okay. I mean, we were just there, and I saved her life, and we just went through this big traumatic thing, but I'm okay to leave. Like, I don't know. It just sits so weird with me. But again, I'm not the author. I think as she has proved with Midnight Sun, there's purpose behind most everything that she writes about. And again, I think that's something that she's just never given enough credit. Is I've heard so many people like try to discredit her writing and say, well, she's a good storyteller. No, she is a good author. And I think that this really proves there's so much intent and purpose and thought and world building and character driving, that there's purpose behind that. And so maybe that would be my question, is like, how could he do that to her?
These are all these deep and meaningful questions. I would go with a question that's not so deep and meaningful, but just one that I just don't believe. Empire Strikes Back.
That and Comic-Con. What? Yeah.
I don't believe that's Bella's favorite. No. I don't see it. Like, so did you just pick a movie that you like? Because you need to go talk to people that were teenagers in 2005, and that wasn't. Even though Bella's like an old soul.
And like now, yes, because it's like the Star Wars movies have made such a big, like, all the recent movies, but then.
I say this as a huge fan of the Star Wars franchise. It is a rare girl that picks that as her favorite movie.
For sure.
Yeah.
And in 2005, if she was a Star Wars fan, her favorite movie would be Attack of the Clones.
Right. Yeah. I know. It's
telling ya, as a Star Wars fan, obsessed with romance, her favorite movie would be Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I can confirm that as someone who was in high school and obsessed with Star Wars all through high school and forever. It wouldn't have been Empire Strikes Back. That was a guy's favorite.
Yes, and if you think about like her reading, I don't like, I can't imagine that that's her favorite movie, but like she's reading Jane Austen. Like, can't you imagine?
Right.
Like, I don't know what it would be, but it would be something.
Because I love Jane Austen and I've got Star Wars decorations all over my house.
For sure. I'm not saying that you can't have one without the other. I'm just saying like it's kind of out of nowhere.
2005. In 2005, a 17-year-old girl would not have picked The Empire Strikes Back.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
And that just stuck out like a sore thumb. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Stephnenie.
Do you think there was a lot like that would be an interesting question.
Put her in sleeveless shirts with khakis and then you have her, no.
Well, and the fact is that one of the chats, Stephnenie said like her favorite book to movie adaptation was Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility. And I was like, that would have made sense if Bella said her favorite.
Or Emma or something like something.
Clueless. Like
yes. Do you think there was a lot of like, I think it would be interesting to read Midnight Sun from back then, Midnight Sun to now. Do you think that there was a lot of that? You guys may have already covered this in prior conversations, but do you think there was updating or like, I did read an article where somebody, I maybe shouldn't say anything about it because I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was somebody that was talking about like the stalkery side of Edward and the author specifically said, well, I think that maybe was an update for like to make this more like the Me Too now. And I was like, I didn't feel that way at all because do you guys feel like there was updating?
Amy has the original PDF. I have it. That stalker stuff is not the part that she's changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's definitely parts in this that are different than what she released back then.
And I read that like what she released, but like the snippet that we got. Did you guys have more? Do you remember?
I mean, there were things added. I know there's one line that people were really upset that did not finish or was in the original draft that is not in the book. And I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure somebody remembers in the chat. But yeah, there was a line that people were like, "Oh my God, how could that not be in the book?"
I'm so happy to hear that stalkery thing was not what was different because it kind of made me mad. Like, again, I don't think anybody that really read it, and maybe that was a mature reader at that point. I don't think anybody really, I mean, you may have gone there, but I don't think it was such a big deal as maybe people make it out to be now. So
no, a lot of the articles I saw too were from like just like clickbait sort of things. Like they were like, oh, it's relevant.
Emily says it's the "I'm wretchedly in love with you" line.
Yeah. That one. People were upset about that one.
All right. This is like conclusion because we've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
Do you love Edward and Bella and like Edward? Do you like them more or less? We kind of started to cover this, but do you like them more or less and why? So Shelley, you get to go first.
I had done a complete reread before I hadn't finished Breaking Dawn. Okay, but everything else I read before this release. And I was reading Twilight and I was like, Edward's kind of a douche, and I really love Edward. And
you texted me that. I did. And then I was like, and then I read Midnight Sun. I was like, oh, I love Edward.
Edward, yeah. So, I think he has massive anxiety, and I think he's a bit of a mess. And I think that endears him more. And so I really loved his inner monologue. I loved a lot of I thought he was funny. I thought Stephnenie did a great job of writing a lot of like humor. I mean, there were many times Edward would think something and I would just burst out laughing out loud, So I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed that even though there were some much darker pieces of that, I really enjoyed more of the humor that was infused with Edward's personality. And, I don't know. I think I probably feel the same about Bella that I did before. I think they see each other so ideally just because they are in love, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. So I kind of felt the same about Bella that I did before, and I like Edward more, of course.
Heather?
I like Bella a lot more from Edward's perspective, but not because he like idealizes her, more just because she puts up with him, and I feel like that takes a very special person. Like and I mean that in like the nicest way. Like Edward and Bella, I love them. I am Team Edward 1000%, as we all know. I am not Team Jacob. It's fine, but I just like really had a new appreciation for her as a character and as someone who deals with just like constant lying and manipulation by just everybody around her. And I think I already really loved Edward, and I kind of was at a point where it's hard to love him more. He is annoying and as Shelley said, quite a douche in a lot of stuff, and his thoughts and his actions annoy me, but I think that I also grew like this new appreciation for him in reading Midnight Sun. And I loved how anxious he was. I loved how young he was. I loved how he was so old-fashioned, and how he was actually like showing sides of him that are a person and sides of him that are an insanely dangerous killer who wants warm, hot blood instead of cold blood. Like, it's just like, it was really nice to kind of get some depth on his character, having already been in love with him. So yeah, I guess I just love I just love things, guys.
Oh.
So I have never been on the train that like, I love this whole series because it's a love story. It's never been me. So I don't think that I necessarily got a bigger appreciation of them or disliked it anymore. But I did like that, you know, doing these Twilight Tuesdays that Amy and I have been doing, there's been so many times where I've just been like, oh, I wish I knew what Edward was thinking in that moment, that this got to the heart of a lot of those times. So I wouldn't say that it changed my perspective on their love story, but like, I'm glad that I finally got to see those little quips that I was just like, what is he thinking right now?
Mm-hmm.
Amy?
Just quick thing, I want to comment on the chat. Lisa and Emily were talking about the articles that are out there being negative and they didn't expect people to
I
care.
saw that too.
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, it sold 1 million copies in 1 week, and I have yet to see a copy of it available out in the wild. Like, I've bookstores, Target, I have not seen a copy. Like, they're all sold out. So, you know, I'm hoping that this all taken them by surprise and realizing, yeah, Twilight fans still exist, and even more are coming out as part of the Twilight Renaissance.
Always like this, you know. I was just telling my daughter, because when we watched Twilight, and I told her, I was like, I remember whenever Twilight came out, of like watching like the movie, of watching the numbers, because I remember like New Moon wasn't going to get greenlit unless we hit unless, you know, a certain amount of money was made by a certain time. And so I remember like watching, and like on Twilight Moms, you know, everybody was like, okay, it's at this and it's at that. And then when we finally hit whatever it was, in that like way sooner than anybody expected to, being like, haha, we knew it was going to, but nobody's ever, you know, had faith in anything from the start. I just think it's one of those things that Twilight fans are always really underestimated. And that my daughter was like, really? Like, you didn't know New Moon was going to get made? I think Twilight fans always felt like it, but it was such a hanging question out there whether it was going to be, you know, such a success.
Well, I mean, it's been that way with the books too. I mean, Stephnenie herself was stunned that New Moon the book debuted at #1. You know, the highest that Twilight went on its first was #5. It never hit #1. New Moon debuted at #1. And she was stunned by that.
Yeah.
It's no one ever believes in the purchasing power of women-led fandoms.
Well,
like
true.
Exactly.
So true.
That's exactly it.
Catherine Hardwick told us, because Lori let me be with her during an interview and we laid on a floor.
Laying on the floor. Yeah.
During the interview with Catherine Hardwick, basically she said that she had to talk the studio into doing the meadow scene. That's why it's kind of funky and like this weird action where they're laying there, because the studio didn't want to spend the extra money to do it. And she was like, you guys, we have to give them something of this.
They didn't even have the lines. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb. They didn't even have that in the original script. And Kristen Stewart was like, people have this tattooed on their body. If we don't say this line, we're gonna get like apples thrown at us.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. So crazy.
No, that's Kristen Stewart is like the biggest Twilight fan. Just
So sorry, the question was do you like Edward more? Do you like Bella more or less? So yeah, I mean, Mel was talking a bit about our discussions and kind of, I'm in a similar boat that for me, when I was first reading Twilight, I was like, why is she falling in love with him? He's a dick. Like, why is this happening? It was to me like those other characters that really got me interested, and the whole Stephnenie writing debate about. I think she's become a much better writer. But like as someone who's working in communications and writing, and I was like, the writing. I mean, I can go back and look at things from that time. I'm like, the writing is terrible, but I can't stop reading this book. There's something about the story. I would say like sort of my feelings on them a little bit what I was expressing before is that they're so like blind looking at each other, and it in some ways made me like, it was pissing me off because I'm like, he's like, oh, she's so good. She's so good. I'm like, no, we thought about what she was thinking there. She's not so good. Like she's, she is at times brat. And as we go into the other books, she's definitely bratty. And I'm like, because of him, like seeing her, putting her up on this pedestal that she doesn't deserve, like kind of knocked her down for me. And I would say like almost, the other way, it goes the other way too. Like the way Bella at times puts him up on a pedestal when he's being such a dick to her. I kind of like always had that feeling about it, but his view of her just kind of knocked her down a bit for me. Kind of the opposite, I guess, of other people's feelings on it. Erin.
Yeah, but I think I know I liked him. I don't know. I'm always like 100% Team Edward. So I liked him. I don't know. And I'm also a weirdo. I like really like manly men and like kind of bad guys. Like, right. There's a part of all of us that kind of likes the bad guys. So I kind of like seeing a more like villainous version of him. Because sometimes in the other books, I'm like, put your big girl panties on, Edward. Like, quit being so angsty. And so it was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of like seeing him a little bit more like definite in thinking, and I don't know. But like I did like Bella more. But that's kind of love, right? Like we're not everybody's cup of tea, right? And I think like if you were to look at me through my husband's eyes, not always, and probably not tonight. Probably not tonight at all. Like he probably, hopefully, sees a much better version of me than the rest of the world does. And that's what's really special about it. And I know that I see a version of him that nobody else could see, right? And especially when you're so young. And as Edward has proven to us, like, yes, he's lived a long time, but he still is 17. And all that goes with that too. So I know I think I liked Edward probably the same, maybe a little bit more better, but I liked Bella a whole lot better. But and I think it's kind of, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? Like you don't want to, when you're first dating somebody, I don't want to know what the person I'm dating is thinking, and I sure don't want them to know what I'm thinking, right? Because like, is my stomach in my Spanx? Like, stuff like that. They don't need to know that.
That's actually like really funny, because I always wondered like if Bella has to go to the bathroom, because I'm someone that like always has to go to the bathroom, and how she just like hangs out with Edward in the meadow all day. I'm like, what if you have to go to the bathroom? Like, what do you do?
Yeah,
That would be me. Like,
Can I have
can
the
you?
talk? Are we gonna have to have the talk?
I mean, you wanted to have it, so.
I definitely liked Bella more from reading this. And I know that's like the opposite of what Amy's been saying, that I see, I guess because I personally, Lori has always been fascinated by vampires, that I get why Bella is drawn to Edward, because I'm drawn to vampires. And I've always thought, why is he so drawn to her? And the string of YA books that Twilight set off, where it's seemingly this ordinary nothing girl who two hot, amazing men fight over, and then like in the third or fourth book, you find out that she's special. I was like, oh, so why do these guys like these girls? Nobody's ever fighting over me.
Maybe they already don't know. Like Bella was oblivious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes me realize why he must have liked her, even though I know she's not that good. I'm channeling my inner Jessica here. She, of course, even though we know she's not that good, it helps me to better accept that, yes, he does love her. But Edward, because I read Twilight and then I read Midnight Sun, and then all the rest of it fell into place. So I've always had that dark and creepiness and the known that the darkness, how dark Edward could go.
And you always knew he was gonna leave, didn't you?
No, because I only had 11 chapters.
Okay.
I only had 11. I never got to the meadow. When I finally got to the meadow in Midnight Sun, I was like, finally. I was Marcus. Finally.
Finally.
I've been waiting for so long.
But Lori, that's a really good point though, like to talk about a different vampire series, but like Vampire Lestat, he's dirty of the dirtiest and goes way grosser and dirtier than Edward I think could ever dream of being. Maybe not. But right, like when everybody read those, you kind of rooted for Lestat, right?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And he was horrible.
What's wrong with us? I mean, come on.
So the vampire Lestat actually thought what Edward would never think, and we're going to go there. So if you're grossed out by talk, we're going there. Shut off your ears if you don't want to hear about women's periods. So we're going to go there. It was the part in Memnoch the Devil that made me stop reading that series. I love the vampire Lestat. I love the Interview of the Vampire and all those things. And then we get to Memnoch the Devil and he falls in love and he actually thinks about drinking his beloved's menses, which nearly made me vomit.
Doing the cat vomit face.
He's gonna drink her period blood. It is the number one question I get. These girls all can verify the number of times, every time I get this question, at least once, if not twice a week, I get it in my inbox. If Edward is such, if he's so worried about, why doesn't he just drink? Why doesn't he turn into a frenzy when Bella's on her period?
Yes,
why doesn't he just drink her period blood? Why doesn't Edward drink her period blood? And I just want to gag.
Do we all know the answer to this? Can we all?
I've been answering it from like day one. So there's several reasons. First of all, he's too much of a gentleman. He would never
acknowledge it or embarrass her like
Victorian era Edward, are you kidding?
Yeah.
No.
Clearly, and I get it from girls all the time. Why doesn't he want to drink that? I'm like, I'm sorry, we're going there. It's gross. You've smelled that. It's
not
yuck.
The same.
Yuck.
It's not the same as like cutting your arm blood,
not
right?
The same as fresh blood. We're talking about dead, nasty. No. That's not attractive.
If he wants warm blood, old, gross blood, is no. You know what I mean? Like,
no. And if that was going to be a problem for him, it would be a problem for every vampire.
Yeah.
There is no way Jasper could go to a high school
Yep.
filled with hundreds of teenage girls who are on their period because,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
Alice
Yeah, no.
if there's that many people in the school, I'm sorry, there's probably 100 girls at any given time on their period. If that was going to
Yep.
be a problem, Jasper couldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say, you can walk down the street. Are you kidding? No.
Because all of us humans, all of us human girls, for, you know, a good 30, 40 years of our lives have to deal with that. So I went there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm proud of you because, you know, I mean, people, I think that was like back in the day on Twilight Mom pages, like when new people would join, it would like people would jump in the conversation thinking they were bringing some new like aspect nobody thought about
All
And
the
it's like,
time. So I have this question and I'm surprised no one's ever asked it.
Everybody.
yes, they have.
Literally, everybody's asked it.
Yes.
Wait, in the comments, that's death blood. That just
Blood. Ew.
That's funny.
That's really great.
That's funny.
Well, if you think about it, like in Interview the Vampire, they won't drink, you know, a dead, you know, a
drink
dead
from-
body's.
Right, you can't drink from the dead.
Yeah,
That's how
it's the
they,
same kind of
how
thing.
they kind of kill Lestat the first time.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
So anyway, we are done with our questions. Did we have any questions in the chat that we needed to touch on?
I haven't seen any. Everybody's just generally agreeing with all of
Everyone
our
was
crazy-
really grossed out that I went there.
They're really excited that we went there. People
Yeah.
want the in-depth conversation.
Jennifer asked last week about Carlisle making them attend the funerals of everyone that they killed. Do we you want to
Ooh.
talk about that, Amy?
I mean, do we want to talk about it now or hold that until we talk about focus
Oh, we can talk about that we can save that for the Cullens.
Yeah.
I can make that a specific Cullen question. So we did have a secret word this week. We did have a secret word to win Stephnenie Meyer autograph. And I know I already said, since we originally talked about the word pomegranate and I threw it out and said, nobody's going to say that word. And then she went ahead and said it. So I'll give 2 of these away. I'll give one to Montserrat. And our secret word was, we all want to say it together so we can prove it was the secret word.
Yes.
The secret word was Twilight.
Twilight.
The secret word was Twilight. And it was said like, I don't know, a minute into the conversation. And it was said by, who was it?
Jesse Cochran.
Esme Cochran.
Yeah, Jessica Cochran. So I need you guys to send an email to, is it Twilex admin? I don't even know my own email. What the heck's my email? twilightlexadmin@gmail.com. twilightlexadmin@gmail.com. Send me an email or send me a message either on Instagram or Twitter and say, hey, I'm this person from the chat and you said I won one of these and you got to send me your address. And last week's winner, are they here tonight? The person that we thought said it first last week, because I never got their address either. Do we remember who said it first last week?
It was Sarah Clark.
Yeah,
That's right. Like Renee.
so I need her address. It needs to like get. Ugh. I can't send things to people if I don't have their address.
Well, I just want to note Jesse is actually doing a live with me this weekend, so we still need to nail down the time. But check it out. I'll put it on my Instagram. She's had lots of questions for me, so I was like, "Come on, let's do it live." So
So what is that? Say that again.
So Jesse's going to join me on Instagram Live over at Oh My Carlisle to do a live chat. She's got a bunch of questions that she's wanted to ask. So I said, let's do it live. So I know I need to get back to you, Jesse, about the time, but so look for that. I'll post it in my stories.
All right. So next week, we're not going to be doing this because you're going to get a whole weekend's worth of Twilight yumminess. Where can they find the schedule for that?
Schedule is available on our Facebook page, The Ladies of Alice Esme, A Twilight Paradise. Or if you go to our Instagram, ladies_of_Alice Esme, we do have the link to our Facebook through our bio.
And everybody can participate in that, even if they're not an official Alice Esme person?
Yes, absolutely everybody.
And we'll be on with you on Friday night.
Yes.
Me, right?
Yes, you and me and Heather too.
Yes.
So we'll be talking about social media and Twilight at what, 5:45 Pacific on Friday
Yes.
night.
Yeah.
We have to talk about period blood again.
Yes, you do. Menstrual cycles for life.
I also, guys, I want to say thank you guys so much for having me. I had such a blast.
Thank you for coming.
I really did. I had
Everyone
such
in
a
the
time.
chat for watching. I know that there are lots of people that are in England and that they can't like watch these, and so we like to hear from our people that watch them after they've been live, and we appreciate all the people that chime in. And if you have any specific questions about the Cullens or topics that you want us to talk about the Cullens in 2 weeks, let us know and we'll try to work those in. But we're done for tonight. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.